The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically and agonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again.
They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of special operations forces.
We will make America proud again.
And watch, please, those mail-in ballots.
We will make America safe again.
And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed.
Dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you.
If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. As always, and unfortunately, I am joined by Burning Bright. And guys, before we even get into it, I want to give a big congratulations, big shout out to everybody. We have officially surpassed $40 trillion in debt. We did it. We made it. And what the hell happened to your eye, dude? Is this some pink eye?
I've been told this is a calm, right? But that's a black eye, if there's one black eye. Yeah, I have no idea. So if my eye rots out of my head in the next couple of days, it started here. I was grilling earlier, grilled up some burgers.
Yeah.
And my eye felt fine all day. And then, like, right after dinner, we packed the kid up, went to the beach, and my eye on the way just started killing me. It is bleeding. It hurts. I have no idea what's going on. So,
sounds like Miss Bright farted in your pillow, bro.
It's probably what's going on, but it's like sudden onset.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah,
Stop touching it.
Might be a stroke. Who
yeah,
knows?
I doubt it, but like a stroke of the eyelid, is that a thing?
I don't know. It's like a burst blood vessel, so, or at least it looks like that.
When you say bleeding, like what do you mean? Like actual blood coming out of the eye?
No,
Stop touching it.
Stop
touching it. I feel like you're my son right now. Like I have to tell him.
Really red. I touched it a bunch already. I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, stop touching it. And did you wash your hands today?
Yeah.
You don't know where your hands have been.
I probably touched my eye before I washed my hands.
Yeah, see, you gave yourself something. You have STDs of the eye. You have the super syphilis that was going around in, what was it, Pennsylvania or something? Did you hear about that story?
It's a flesh-eating bacteria.
Super devolution related. Some guy had sex with two women, and each of the women had separate forms of like separate strains of syphilis. And so he got super syphilis and became like a different kind of Avengers. And he's just like giving super syphilis to everybody. Yeah.
Okay. I figured they'd cancel each other out. Yeah. I don't know if it was a good move or a bad move. In hindsight, it might have been a bad move, but I also dove into the ocean to see if that would help my clearly messed up eye.
So you dove into salt water with a wound of the eye. That's smart.
With lots of creatures in it. I was thinking maybe it would be like a natural vaccine.
Yeah, doesn't work. But we do have cancer vaccines now, so that's cool. Big news.
True, I heard about that, yeah. They're slow rolling all that stuff, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure what to think. I haven't really gone all into the whole thing. I just read the story today on my show, but you know, we all hated mRNAs previously. And now we love mRNAs, especially the Q decoders. The Q decoders predicted this was coming, and they love mRNA vaccines now. But I do remember very early in Trump's this term of Trump, this rendition, whatever, he rolled out, like, I think it was the people from Oracle and a whole bunch of like AI people and everything. And he's talked about the investments they were making and how they were going to use AI to like cure diseases and stuff, like maybe find a cure for cancer. And everybody lost their minds, like, because he was talking about mRNA stuff. Right. And here we are. The stock went way up.
Tell me if my audio is better, guys. I just put it up to the absolute max. I don't know what is going on lately, because the last 2 weeks, every co-host of mine is saying I sound normal, but then on the actual feed, I sound lower.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't know what's going on with that, but
you don't sound fine, but your volume is appropriate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, the cancer stuff, I don't know. I mean, the cures, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that the cures exist. Certainly in the Q drops, they were talking about this is a first principle going back decades in the truth community, long before the modern info war, which is, does big pharma make money curing or controlling? I think we all know the answer to that. It'd be pretty great if we could get out of that. It's tangential to even sort of some of the stuff we talk about with Trump's communications of how we're big Trump supporters. We think there's a lot of game theory going on, but it is fair at times to say like, hey man, that's not really what's going on. And one of the big narratives this year that I do not think is true is him constantly talking about healthcare costs being good. Like speaking as somebody who pays a mortgage every month for insurance. And
well,
that was
he's been
not
saying
the
that about everything though. Like,
yeah, it's true. But so I wonder if we are getting some sort of phase shift in the next couple of years, do you start putting pressure on pricing in that industry simply by starting to cure a bunch of shit? That would be pretty. The curing the shit is the more important thing, but I mean, to most Americans right now, I feel like the paying for this stuff is actually the worst part.
yeah, I mean, in my opinion, like we need actual competition with people that aren't in bed with each other, because
Yeah.
actual capitalism, that's how you drive prices down. People try to either put out a better product to justify the price, or when the product is roughly the same, then how are you going to attract customers? You start lowering prices. Like, I don't know. That's one way, but I understand what you're saying. Curing people would be ideal. They obviously, that's not in their business model at the moment. Maybe we'll get there, but the show, we're not going to talk too much more about vaccines other than your cancer of the eye right now, whatever that is. It's the only thing.
Yeah.
I think I just need you to stop looking to your right, because when you look that way, it perturbs me.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, but I guess just looking at you generally kind of perturbs me.
Yeah.
So whatever. I have been told from other Badlands hosts today that Rumble Studio and Rumble generally is kind of having some technical difficulties. So I'm going to encourage everybody very early in the show today to make sure you should at least have a tab open on YouTube anyway, just so that we can get the view count. But if you guys wouldn't mind giving us a follow over there, just in case, I just put in the chat and Rumble. That way, if anything does go wrong, anything goes wonky, you can come on over to YouTube and hang out with us over there, because we've been popping up. We got like 1,000 new subscribers in the last 48 hours or something. It's been great.
Yeah, it's good to diversify. We get canceled over there like every 3 weeks, but then we always come back and
it hasn't been. We've been over there now for like a solid 9 months or something without.
Yeah.
We only had one strike in the last 9 months, which is great.
Who was it?
I think it was Ash and Ghost, because they basically streamed.
Clips.
No, they basically streamed The Choice.
That's
or
what
The Chosen
Ghost
or
does.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just streams entire shows.
That's
he did
frowned
that on
upon.
the narrative a couple months ago, but
yeah. But anyway, we do have tonight, we're going to talk about some of the declassifications this week. If you've been watching my show, which I'm assuming all of you have been, the Monday declassification, it's about Eric Swalwell and Fang, and that part of it like isn't all that great. I mean, there's some interesting nuggets in there, but how the document itself was declassified, I would say, is much more interesting. So we'll talk about that. There was also a declass on, was it yesterday morning, but it wasn't that great. It was just like a 3-page NSA thing, like a note to self. So what else? Oh, we got Comey. We have a new indictment, or new filings in the Comey case. I still think that case is a rug. We have the U.S. sanctioning International Criminal Court president.
Yep.
And basically say, I love what Rubio says about that, because we'll get into it. Other big news this week, former NIAID guy, Morenz or whatever, he pleaded guilty in federal court. So that's kind of notable. Like conspiracy to defraud the United States, like a right-hand
I feel
guy.
like it's strange. That was one that I think we put it into the Badlands brief this week, and that one was strange to me because I did a bunch of research on it, because I feel like it didn't make a lot of news, and it felt like it should have been a really big deal to me. Like, I mean, maybe it did in some circles, but yeah, that'll be fun to talk about, because there are some actuals going on, and that is certainly one of them. Sometimes I try to think about if this was 2020 or 2022 and this happened that week, how would this community be responding to it? And I think we need to keep that in mind, because all this stuff is on a delay. So then sometimes when the thing that we are freaking out about at the time, good or bad, we're like, oh, this would be huge if this happened. And then it happens 4 years later. We're like, whatever. It's like, well, it still actually might be huge. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't dug into that case at all. I'm curious, like, when was the investigation started? Did it start pre-Trump, during Trump? Because some of this stuff, I think, as Chris talks about, like, it's stuff that may have been in the works for a while and may have been planned to happen anyway. But I know the one that everybody's keen in on is Fauci, and we're getting his messages now, and some of them are super damning, and that's super interesting. But when you see a case like this Morenz guy, and we'll get into it, but this is why he pled the fifth. Like, the entire thing is because he knew there was other things going on. He has other exposure out there. We'll also, what else? A couple of interesting True Social posts from Trump. Some economic stuff, although I don't know. We'll see how far we get along. And then I know we could talk Iran, but should have just borne the hell out of me right now.
Well, they just finally confirmed that it's an economic war and not an actual war, which is just part of we're in the transition phase now, from claiming that it's a real war to claiming that it's an economic war. And right before we went live, I just thought this was funny.
Also, hold on, before you even get into that, I feel like you've said that. Like, we've been saying that for months now. And so I don't want to have the same conversation again about the same topic. That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That bores me.
I get it.
So we'll see. But what happened before we went live?
So I don't think that, again, what is real, what is fake. I just think it's interesting that the media. So keep in mind, Trump today is saying, all right, we're not going to bomb them anymore, or at least right now, we're not going to bomb them anymore, but we're going to do the economic D-Day.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about 4 months. One of the ways we've framed it is Scott Bessent has been out there talking about Operation Economic Fury. The whole time Trump is talking about Operation Epic Fury. And one of the things I've said in a lot of my articles is I think Operation Economic Fury is the operation. So now we have Trump for the first time, in my estimation, basically going toward that rather than the first one. And now we've got another one of these cascades where all the media is saying U.S. conducting stealth operation to transport oil through Hormuz. So this just
Didn't
goes
we have
to
this story like 2 months ago, though?
Yeah. So
for
me, what I think they're doing, but I think that is the story, as we've talked about, is that it's like they're just going to have to pretend that all of this stuff is restarting when none of it was stopping in the first place, in terms of this oil transportation and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not to the levels, at least as far as we know, that it was previously.
Well, I think, and I think that's the oil companies, which is why I'm waiting, and I don't know if it's going to happen, but I did project in advance that Trump was going to go after the U.S. oil companies. He said he was going to, like a month ago. I'm just interested to see, like, that's really, if I'm looking for any major actual to come out of this whole energy war, it's what does Trump do if he does anything with the U.S. energy cartel, because those would be the ones, to your point, it's not flowing. My point is that I think the oil companies know that it's a fake war, and I think they have intentionally restricted U.S. energy flows during that time so that they can jack all the prices, which Trump basically acknowledged about a month ago by saying that. The question is, does he do anything about it to them?
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe he will. If so, when? I don't know. Again, I'm just bored of it. The Iran war. I mean, it's fun to watch the freak out around the conflict stuff, and some of his True Social posts are great. But like, he's had really good, bombastic True Social posts about the Iran war every other day for 7 months, and it's like, until we see some sort of actual status quo change, I'm just like, okay, cool. Let's what else? Give me some more declass documents, which that's the stuff that excites me.
You're into Fang.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. But before we do, we got to get a quick word from a couple of our sponsors, and we are going to start with some soft disclosure.
Soft Disclosure deodorant is made with purity-tested ingredients like organic arrowroot powder, magnesium hydroxide, and nourishing plant oils. This deodorant keeps you fresh without covering up the truth. Activated charcoal works like a magnet to help draw out impurities, while green matcha tea brings antioxidant power to protect and calm skin. Aluminum-free, stain-free, and formulated to last up to 2 months of daily use.
Whole bus fresh, no steak on me. Soft Disclosure got me clean. Fresh so loud, can't compete. Mint, lemon, grapefruit, lavender tea.
It helps fight odor without blocking the body's natural sweat. And every purchase helps support 6 American small businesses. Buy 2 deodorants, get a free lip balm. Or visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code FRESH for 15% off.
What are you doing?
Soft Disclosure got me clean. Fresh so loud, can't compete.
Softdisclosure.com. When the whole bus is fresh, there'll be no stank on you. Promo code FRESH. Get yourself a discount. Get yourself some of the best lotion products, deodorant, beard oil that you can. There's a comment in the chat I want to address real quick. Santa Tina 89 says, nah, if Rumble goes down, I'll catch it later. Not going to support a platform that censors everyone who didn't follow the script during COVID. I totally understand what you're saying, but keep in mind that the reason we're asking you to go over there and watch over there, like, and everything is you can help us grow and reach more people by doing so. And so while it happens to be on a platform that we don't like, you're not supporting necessarily the platform. You're supporting us on that platform. And the whole goal of waking the normies, right? Everybody's like, oh, we got to wake the normies, reach the normies. That's where they are. Like, we can't just be siloed. Oh my God, you look like such an idiot. We can't just be siloed on Rumble and like sit here and expect to grow and have people find us. They're not going to come search for us on Rumble. They're going to stumble upon us and be just taken aback by our wit, charm, and brilliance. And so
they already all are over here. We got them. Yeah. Already got you guys. The low-hanging fruit. That's what you are in the chat. No, I'm just kidding. No, it is actually funny, though, because I don't watch any political commentary on YouTube. I watch, like, other stuff on YouTube. All my political commentary or geopolitical commentary is basically in our sphere and, like, very slightly adjacent to it. But it is eye-opening. Like, I saw your interview the other day, or yesterday, I think.
Which one?
Yesterday, the day before.
2 of them.
Yeah, and it was good. It was good. I only saw one of them, but it's good stuff. But it also demonstrates, you're like, there's a lot of views on this, and these are things we were talking about
5 years ago.
5 years ago, and I mean, it's good, but to see less so, you know, who you're talking to, and more so to see the comments and everything of people being like, this is crazy, that's crazy, that's crazy, this is crazy, and you're like, oh man. Well, I mean, Chris has been talking about informational time travel or the informational timeline for a long time. It's just funny when you kind of come out of one preserve and go into another one. You're like, what are you guys doing over here? What have you been doing the whole time? Like, watching Tim Pool, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of people on YouTube that would like our stuff and are just ripe for the picking. We just gotta reach them, and that's how we do it. So, of all the comments in the chat about your eye, I think my favorite so far is actually a little biased one from my girlfriend. She said, we know he didn't get it from changing his son's diaper.
Was that to imply I don't change my son's diaper? Because I've changed his diaper hundreds of, if not thousands of times.
Doubt it. Have you changed poopy diapers?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought the rumor was you don't change the diapers.
No, I don't know where these rumors come from, but.
No. Okay, well,
I
never
mean,
mind.
These days, when
funny.
Mrs. Bright is working half time, then yeah, I don't change as many diapers as she does. And if she wants me to tell her twice, then I can transfer this bag of peas to her right after I barricade this door. Make sure she scampered off.
Awesome. We do have one more.
Feel really good, so I'm not going to do it the whole time, but
that's okay. Do whatever. I don't really care. We do have one more sponsor, real quick. I believe it's the Awkward Rumble. Gosh dang it, it is. I love Rumble Wallet. Love Rumble Studio. This is the most awkward ad read, and I keep telling them. They keep giving it to us, but I'm gonna read it and read it verbatim. as I'm supposed to, and then we'll get on with the show and get to the declassified documents. So this is a paid advertisement from Rumble Wallet, and it's perfect because it's actually covering up half of BB's face, the eye especially. So they're sponsoring this portion of the show. All right, chat, real talk. If you actually want my attention, there's now a clear line to it. Here's how it works. We're prioritizing rants sent through Rumble Wallet. If you send one, we see it and we respond. Simple as that. For a limited time, you can start your wallet with $20 in US stablecoin for tipping Rumble creators like us by entering the exclusive promo code DPH20 when you sign up now. Questions, hot takes, stuff you really want us to react to, don't bury it in the chat. Put it in a rant, because let's be honest, regular chat flies by. But when you use your Rumble Wallet, it cuts through everything. So here's the move. Scan the QR code or use the link in the description. Download Rumble Wallet and try it for yourself. And don't forget to use the code DPH20 and claim $20 for tipping in US stablecoins. Sending a tip is easy. Open the chat like you're sending a Rumble rant and hit to pay with Rumble Wallet. It's basically the VIP lane. So if you want to shout out, you want us to actually engage with what you're saying, use Rumble Wallet and claim $20 in US stablecoin with the code DPH20. Then send that rant. We'll be watching for them. Restrictions apply. There are a limited number of entries available. Terms and conditions also apply. So see the description below or visit rumble.com/promoofficialrules for details. Alrighty. There we go. Anyway, Alpha's in the chat.
Talking about poopy diapers.
Poopy diapers.
I've done my fair share.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure you have. Okay, let's get into the declassified documents of the week. Once again, if you go to the White House website, let me share my screen. And again, if you watch my show, some of this is a rerun for you, but well worth it. Under the election integrity tab on the White House website, super funny that every one of these things, as I keep repeating, nothing actually shows any form of actual like election interference, any form of vote changing, ballot harvest, like stuff like that. It's all intelligence community related documents, every one of them. And that's a good thing. You know, I'm not trying to say it's not. I love that.
Sign up for the newsletter, man.
Nah, I'm not doing that. I think I downloaded the app once and I was like, oh my gosh, spam galore. So I unsigned up from the app. But let me pull up the actual just the news article.
You think the first candidate who got the True Social shout out from Trump, who was like MAGA and America First Patriot, such and such is a patriot and will make such and such great, and they felt really good? And then like the 400th person he copy and pasted that message to, how do they feel?
I don't know. I don't understand what you're saying.
Every night he tweets or truths about 50 candidate endorsements, and they're just copy pastes.
Yeah. And how many people actually read any of that shit? Where's he going? Okay, well I guess we can do this part without him for sure. Oh, never mind.
My dog
you done?
is annoying me, so I barricaded my door actually this time.
All right. Alpha in the chat sent a rant. Actually, well, we got two rants real quick. Let me do these. Flying Storm says, hey, Patel Patriot, will you give me your email? And if so, check it later. Yeah, it's john@badlandsmedia.org. No promises on a response, though. And then the Alpha Warrior Show says, BB does look like a badass right now. Gotta admit it. Looks like a bar fight. I feel like if it was a bar fight, it'd look cooler. It looks like he has herpes of the eye.
I do have old pictures of actual damage from fights, and they don't look like pink eye.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what it looks like tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if I have an eye.
Anyway, okay, so this is the story. FBI had evidence that Swalwell got illegal donations from suspected Chinese spy. Bombshell memos show. The newly declassified investigation files also show that the FBI had initially tried to recruit the infamous Fang Fang as a source that could share information on Chinese influence operations targeting public officials in the United States. None of this is necessarily new information. Even her being a Chinese spy at one point, I think CanCon posted. He put out a story back in 2024. Zach was talking about this stuff back in 2024. But one thing I want to point out before we even get into the meat of this is just a reminder of how this is being released right now. John Solomon is part of a White House task force, and every morning, that's the first place I check is I go to Just the News just to see if we got new documents, because what they do is they'll declassify a document, and then like 6 days later, 7 days later, after it's been declassified, at like 6:30 in the morning, or on this one, this was 6:50 in the morning, John Solomon and his website posts a story about the declassified documents. And so everything we're getting is getting from a filter of a journalist telling us a story, and that's important context. If you think of all the other declassifications the White House has done, like the JFK files and the UFO files and the Epstein files, or whatever files you can think of that have been released, every one of them is like, we're the most transparent administration in history. Here's everything we have. Just go for it. But they're not doing that with these. With these, it's like you get a select few documents and you are getting them through a filter. This is what we want you to know. I think it'd be much more productive to just put everything out. But obviously, they don't want to do that. They want to tell a narrative and tell a story as they're producing those. And that story clearly is, look how weaponized our intelligence community has become and is and has been, throughout the entire Trump administration. I'll pause there in case you want to comment on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good framing of it, and I think it's good to point out, and we can also be rational about it and not, get super pissed about it. It's good to... I
was not getting pissed, by the way.
No, I know. I'm saying there are people that would see what you said and think, oh, that means it doesn't matter at all. But I think it's important framing that you point out to say, you really shouldn't be looking at this as a major as Solomon and what he's doing as a major declassification push. It's more like a controlled release and almost like a PR firm. Like Solomon is, basically to your point, he's running media, but this time on behalf of actual declassification coming out of the administration. So I think all the information is good, and I do think it's leading us, but leading, I think you can go bicameral with that word in multiple definitions of it. It's leading us somewhere, and it's also leading in terms of it's dangling a carrot in front of the central narrative and kind of forcing the central narrative onto certain rails, recalling things. And as we said the last few weeks, or really the last couple of years that we've been talking about Solomon in particular, it's obviously being done on a specific cadence and in a specific order. So I think that's totally fine as long as we're reading it that way. I think it's a better, more sober analysis to say Solomon wasn't brought in to start digging around and help the Trump administration figure out what they need to declassify. I think it's far more likely that Solomon is simply the vector of this, dripped info.
Yep. No, that's a great way to put it. Again, I'm not upset by this. I am obsessed with documents. I love going through these every time they come out. I just wish I had the full access to all of them, because I think I could probably tell a better story than John Solomon. No offense. John Solomon, I take that back. John Solomon is great at telling stories. He's just telling the story that they want you to hear. I would just tell the story as I see it. You know what I mean? And there is a difference there. But with these specific documents, we could get into like the actual meat and bones here. Maybe I'll read a couple paragraphs, but then I just want to show you what I found most interesting. Two things I found most interesting. So read a couple paragraphs and we'll go from there. The FBI developed evidence that a Chinese woman with direct ties to that country's intelligence service had potentially compromised a Democratic congressman from California with sex, foreign interns, and illicit donations while she was being recruited to become a bureau informant a decade ago, according to bombshell memos that expose another threat to America's political system from Beijing. So to summarize, our FBI was investigating this Fang woman, and they wanted to recruit her as their own confidential human source and essentially flipper, double agent type thing. And when they realized that they couldn't get her, she ended up fleeing the country. But in the process of doing that, they're like, oh, she's banging this congressman from California. Maybe we should, go see what's up with that. He got a defensive briefing that he was potentially compromised, and Pelosi knew about it. All these people, he was still on the Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, which is nuts. Probably the biggest takeaway for me is that the second biggest takeaway for me is that Eric Swalwell was bragging that Fang would show up to his house not wearing any underwear, which I just thought was funny, because when the FBI was interviewing people in Swalwell's campaign and his staff and stuff, they're like, oh yeah, he was telling us that like Fang Fang would just show up, and Fang Fang would showed up on Swalwell's door on occasion and made it clear to Swalwell she was not wearing any underwear.
I just don't get it in terms of, first of all, it's so stupid with Swalwell. Like, it's so stupid. The whole story's stupid, but I mean, this is one of those these people are stupid things that we've gone back and forth for years of being like, well, are they stupid if they, ran the most successful criminal enterprise in the most powerful country in the world? And then you look at the Swalwells of the world and you're like, yes, a good number of them, a very large number of them are very, very stupid. And then the second would be, if you are an insider in DC and you're this powerful guy in the world we live in, like, you're bragging about being able to pull Fang Fang. I just don't get it. Like, just like, Bantam, just the boys here. What are we doing? Guys who are into Asians get weird about it, I will say.
I don't know.
But I just don't
Asians,
get it.
So I don't know if I can.
I'm not into it. One of my buddies was into Asians, and sometimes he would just look at one of them like, really? That one? And that's kind of how I feel about Swalwell, where I just don't get it. Like, to be bragging to this degree, you'd think more professional hookers and intel assets would be going after guys like that, to the point where he wouldn't be all braggadocious about the Fang Fangs of the world.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say in response to that. But anyway, that's
weird, man.
None of the story.
Self-respect, Swalwell.
None of the story. The kind of point with this is anything that we really didn't already know. But here's the big takeaway for me. If you look at the very top of the declassified documents, this is what it says. It says declassified by White House memorandum dated 3/23/2026. See at the top in big red letters, White House memorandum dated 3/23/2026. Pretty much every one of the other declassified documents we've had, like here's, for instance, Tuesday's, declassified by Counsel to President Warrington on August 12th. A lot of them have said something like this: declassified by the DNI, declassified by whoever. This is the first one that I've come across that says declassified by White House memorandum dated 3/23/2026. So I went and looked for the memorandum on the White House website, and of course I could not find it. And then I went and checked the NSPM thing, and I checked these on Friday, by the way. So this document came out Monday. I checked this on Friday, and the NSPM website was still only showing eight NSPMs. As of Monday, so sometime over the weekend, it had updated, and now they're up to 13, including 2 classified national security presidential memorandums. And for those who don't remember, NSPMs, which I've talked about a lot, they come up quite a bit in the Devolution series. This is how the president sends out his decisions on national security matters. And many of these are classified. We have 2 of them that fall in the timeline sometime between 10/15/25 and 6/5/26. So the assumption, I would say a logical assumption, is that the memorandum that is being referenced here by this document that declassified this is a national security presidential memorandum. And that's notable because whatever this declassified document is, whatever this memorandum is, like, what could it have to do with that the result of it declassifies our FBI's investigation or right there, the title, Operational Plan for Rusty Thumbs, Fang Fang. Like, does the NSPM have to do with foreign influence disclosures? Does it have to do with congressional vetting? Does it have to do with weaponization? Like, there's a pretty broad, couple categories that you could dig into, and every one of them is super interesting for their own reasons. And maybe it's all of them. I don't know, but I would love to know, and I would love to see. Like, we'll probably be able to get a good idea if we get more of these documents that have this memorandum that is what declassified them. But yeah, right now, super interested, more classified NSPMs. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm obviously not as versed on this as you are, but my broad impression would be the whole devolution operation, the military operation. A few weeks ago, we did a show where we talked about insurgencies and counterinsurgencies, which is language that we don't always use, but is kind of vital to engaging on this kind of stuff. And that's really the only major reading of it I would have of why NSPMs would be essential here, or why they'd be used. And that would be because it's just basically de facto disclosure that what they were dealing with and what they knew they were dealing with the whole time was an insurgency. And, you know, how many different ways, devolution is what we've talked about, obviously, in terms of how you devolve the powers of the federal government, you prevent the enemy from taking full control, and you protect those national essential functions. But in terms of the longer play, what's the end goal of the counterinsurgency, the Patriot counterinsurgency? It's obviously to protect the nation, and it's to take the nation back. But really, the end goal most of us talk about is a justice campaign. And obviously, that takes investigations, and that takes information. So it takes evidence. And the only way, I think, they had to get clever about hiding this evidence if the perpetrators were in the government. Like, I'm a broken record about this, but it's like, it's sort of, I think this audience and this community has talked about the deep state for so long that sometimes we almost forget, like, that means they were everywhere. That means they were in Congress. That means they were in the DOJ. And if you're going to take them down, it's not just that we've had all those conversations about, do you do it with the DOJ when it comes to the justice phase? I still don't know about that, although I'm leaning toward it these days instead of military tribunals. But the investigation phase, all of that stuff, it needs to be cleverly hidden. Some of it probably through presidential order, and then maybe other stuff through the private sector.
Yeah, private sector. I mean, that stuff, it'll be more difficult for us to know. But yeah, like with these, with these NSPMs, you know, these are like formal instructions to the national security apparatus, and that's a pretty broad brush right there too. But like, when I think military and the intelligence community. I don't think the intelligence community is necessarily our friend. I think obviously there's good guys in there, some of them, but I do, on a whole, believe it should be dismantled. And I think all the crimes that are being exposed right now are unforgivable, and we need justice and all that, whatever. But it's basically telling those agencies, like, hey, this is the new policy. This is who's responsible for carrying it out. And these are the authorities or contingency plan, whatever. And that's why it's so interesting to me. Like, these don't have to be public. They're different and separate from typical memorandums or typical executive orders, because these are specifically geared for specific national security reasons. And there's a specific national security reason that the White House memorandum was classified and released this thing. And that's just what I find so interesting, because whatever the reasoning is, it has to do with either foreign influence, Congress, like, I mean, the stuff I said earlier, it's just, I don't know, man.
Treason. Yeah.
It could be treason. Is this, you know, the one thing I'm curious about, and we've asked this before, we know the Rico Grande case is going on down in Florida. If we're reading this stuff now publicly, does that mean that none of this stuff is being used in that investigation? I guess you probably don't know, but
no.
I think that's a question worth asking.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I wonder too, and this is partly my sovereign alliance bias. There's the good twin, evil twin refrain that we can get out of the way and say there's obviously been deep state factions operating in the United States, or else none of this would have been necessary. That's the invisible enemy. But they've also been operating elsewhere. There's been foreign nationals that are obviously aligned with the deep state. When I look at, you know, let's say Fang Fang, let's say that the story is that she would have been compromising U.S. elected officials on behalf of the CCP or on behalf of China. I don't have an answer to this, but bringing my sovereign alliance bias into it, especially over the last decade or so, I just wonder aloud with things like this, are we looking at, if the sovereign alliance holds and China wasn't trying to destroy and subvert the United States, like didn't have nefarious intentions. That's a big if, but that's just my premise here.
Big if.
The Xi administration did not have bad intentions with any of this. And if assets like Fang Fang and others were actually operating on behalf of China, is this part of the evil twin of China looking to compromise U.S. officials? Or is it not actually contradictory to sovereign alliance theories? Because who are the people that are being compromised? You know, like, I think to answer my own question, I think the simplest answer is probably the best one, which is that instead of just pretending it's an evil twin or, an unknowable entity within China that's totally separate from Xi and his administration and enforcement mechanisms and intelligence, let's just assume it is part of that. Well, it makes sense, as we talked about last week in the context of Russia, that especially during a time when Donald Trump either wasn't in total control or he's waging a shadow civil war in the United States, it stands to reason that foreign allies or adversaries would be trying to gather this compromising material. And I think one of the things that almost annoys me about a lot of truthers is there will be a lot of them that talk about alliances between Trump and Russia, Trump and China, etc. And then they'll talk about stories like Swalwell and Fang Fang, but just go right to China versus the United States, like as these entities. And that just doesn't really make sense. Those two things don't make a lot of sense.
Why not?
Unless they knew who was potentially evil twin in the United States. And these can be looked at as compromising operations that are helping us. Ultimately, is it bad or good that Swalwell has been compromised through the lens of a U.S. justice campaign?
I mean, I have thoughts. Like I know you obviously talk about the sovereign alliance and stuff, and I think there's some merit to it. I've always been more of like China's not our friend.
Yeah.
Even if they were, like, even if I wanted to like believe the sovereign alliance stuff, does that mean like if there's a faction in China led by Xi and there's a faction in the United States and these good twins all over the place, do the good twins in all the countries, like, do they just like wholesale trust their allies and these other? I mean, they're gonna have spies there doing shit too, right?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's more from a pragmatic. I think that's the most realistic framing to look at this through. That's why I'm saying, just like I shouldn't play white secret sovereign alliance white hat games and say everything is automatically sovereign alliance white hats, I also don't think we should go, oh, this was black hats. I'm saying from that framing, it's pragmatic, but it doesn't contradict sovereign alliance framing. That's my argument, is that there's a lot of people that look at this and they're like, they'll simultaneously be asserting sovereign alliance, but then they'll simultaneously be saying, oh, China was trying to compromise the United States and had all these nefarious intentions. To your point, it's pragmatic whether or not you believe there's a relationship or an alliance between Trump and Xi, for Xi and his administration to have been gathering intelligence on compromised U.S. officials. Like that, this is basically a separate thing that can be put in its own box that doesn't really, you can't take it either way, I don't think, of making a determination this was China trying to compromise the United States. It's like, this is, as you said, China gathering intelligence. My open question is, who were they gathering intelligence for? If there was any coordination going back at all between Trump and military intelligence behind him in the US, and then Xi and his Chinese intelligence, then again, it's interesting to see how many of these American deep state officials, black hat officials, have been compromised, supposedly, by Chinese and Russian assets. Like, that's kind of a trend I'm interested in looking at, because it's always framed as, oh man, look at how many Americans China and Russia were trying to compromise. And then you're like, well, if you're compromisable as an American elected official, then are Russia and China actually doing a disservice to us or something else in the context of Trump?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not sure I fully agree. I still think the story they're trying to tell is more so focused on, it's less on the actual compromise of, or it's less on the actual compromise of Swalwell as it is on the intelligence community trying to flip the Chinese asset and then finding out this stuff on Swalwell and being like, oh, well, I guess we'll just take your word for it, Swalwell, that you didn't commit any of these crimes that this person said you committed. You can just, go away free. We'll make sure we don't publicize any of this stuff. And oh yeah, that, we interviewed the Chinese spy who we knew was a spy, and we just let her leave the country on accident. She just happened to, head to the airport right after we interviewed her. Who could have seen that coming? Like that's more so what I'm like. It's the weaponized intelligence community. Had that been like a Trump or a conservative or something, I think they would have taken a different approach. But again, we're never going to get the real story on some of the stuff. Some of the stuff we just have to like look for the juicy little nuggets as we get them. To me, it was what declassified this and the story that John Solomon is trying to tell us. The rest of it, like whose spy it was, who spies it anyway, or whatever, we're never going to know that. They're never, we'll never know. So, fodder.
Yeah. In terms of the declassification and the declass order, it's interesting to think about if there are, if the justice phase is actually progressing to the degree that we would hope it is, then what does the order of the disclosures say about where that process is at? That's another open question. But one of the sort of things I've been thinking of, and I don't know which grand juries are involved in what, and I know that a lot of this stuff is, need to know basis. We're not going to know these things until we get it reported. But it makes me wonder, we said a few minutes ago, Solomon is obviously doing this stuff on a controlled drip release schedule, right? But it also stands to reason, as much as we've wanted a lot of this stuff declassified a long time ago, if it is being declassified now, it would suggest that the information in the declassifications is no longer required or has already been used. Maybe that's a wrong take, but if I'm looking for an enforcement mechanism, I would think that you hold your powder when you're going to need it for enforcement or to introduce to grand juries, etc. Maybe I have that backwards. Maybe Ash would be better to talk to about it, but I wonder if when stuff gets declassified, is it like, oh, now this stuff is in the public record and is going to be used in grand juries, in court proceedings, etc. for, the grand RICO conspiracy? Or is it the opposite, where they're like, this stuff we're done with this now. You can have it because we're not using it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the question I asked earlier. Like, does it mean we can't use it down in the grand jury? I don't know. I've been told, though, a lot of truthers, like when it comes, John Durham, that investigation, for instance, when he came out with his Durham report, it was like, okay, well, that was lame. Like, where's all the justice and accountability? Like, we were told by you guys, UQ accounts, that the storm was coming, right? And it was John Durham that was bringing that storm. And then when it came, it's like, oh, well, obviously it's all in the classified. And obviously they can't give us like the good stuff because there's ongoing investigations. And so like, are we still applying that same thought process to these or not? That's more so like what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
But I did look at the actual order of these things. And I was trying to find, if anybody can find when John Solomon became part of that White House task force, because I think it was after Trump's big announcement, if I'm not mistaken. So remember, Trump came out, I don't remember the date, but he released these first four. I think he had five points, and four of them came with these documents. The vulnerabilities in electronic voting and ballot counting systems. That was what our CIA knew about Venezuela voting machines, Dominion, all that, Smartmatic. China's acquisition and exploitation of voter data. That was the biggie. They have 220 million, whatever. The Michigan voter registration investigation, where they did a sampling of like 9,000. They had 9,000 instances or reports of potential, fraudulent voter registration voter registrations. They took a sample of like 100 of them, and like something like 80% of them came back as like total frauds. Ridiculous. They didn't end up pursuing crimes there. Then the non-citizens on state voter rolls, it's like a one sheet of how many non-citizens are on there. And Trump just yesterday maybe had a post about the census and all that stuff. And by the way, we should remind me to make my point about voter fraud and primary season. But anyway, then after that, I think it's after this is when John Solomon came on board this White House task force. And that's when we started getting these one at a time. It's the Oxford Comma, that's the James Comey thing. Maricopa County data breach, the March toll, which is Jeff Sessions. Round River is the Biden 14 confidential human sources that came forward saying, oh yeah, we know this corruption, and they totally ignored it, called it conduits of Russian disinformation. Rusty thumbs or rusty trombone or whatever, that's Fang. And then the NSA report, like it is an interesting, it's all election related focus, but it's become much more so, I believe, ever since John Solomon got on board. And that's notable.
Yep. Well, I don't know if you want to move into, I was going to talk about the primaries anyway, But one of the interesting patterns I've noted just in terms of how the machine is reporting on primary results is they are like the same day or every other day, you'll see a wash of headlines about how the establishment is being routed in so many of these primaries. We've got these far left candidates that are coming in. You know, it's mostly occurring on the so-called left. So we'll get those headlines about how establishment candidates are getting routed. Then either the same day or the next day, we'll get a couple of primaries that happen when it's the total opposite. And, you know, I think her name was Fong or Hong or, you know, one of these other Asians, Fang Fang's cousin or something, was defeated. And then the headlines are, well, obviously we knew she was going to lose. She was too extreme. So the establishment Democrat wins that primary. And, you know, I'm sure you and Chris have talked about this on Saturdays, but in terms of if you're trying to, you know, if we're still talking about fake elections because they're fake until proven otherwise, it's sort of interesting to me to see that the central narrative can't seem to reach a central narrative. They can't seem to reach a consensus on what is going on in these primaries when it comes to the elections. A couple days ago, I was reading like an Axios report that was saying why the pollsters keep being wrong, including their own. And, you know, it is kind of interesting to look at and just say, like, whose op is the DSA? And are some of these primaries being stolen even within the so-called left, even within the so-called establishment? And that's why the machine can't really get a bead on what these trend lines are. Are they trying to get them to start looking at this stuff? And, you know, you add to that Trump's endorsement record and everything, and I think Chris has said this a million times, but if he knows which way the rigging is going, then he can just keep that record immaculate as long as possible.
Yeah, and it's not quite immaculate, but it's close.
Yeah, right.
You know, who knows what's going on? The polls, there's a story this week where this poll came out and they're like, oh yeah, we totally just faked this. This was a social experiment. And it's like, wow, that's basically what all of them are, guys. That was really funny. There's also the story this week that what was it? It was the RNC or somebody like associated with the right purchased or started a bunch of fake left super PACs to fund commercials for the socialist candidates. I thought that was hilarious. They're like propping up these socialist candidates. That's the RNC. Like, I don't consider them associated with Trump. They may fundraise off his name and he may use them, but they also do things separately. They need to be destroyed too. But my issue with the election stuff, and I said this on my show, I posted a clip about this, so nothing new for most of you probably, but I'm super, like, for whatever reason this morning or last night, I got super annoyed, more annoyed about this than I have in the past. And it's not a new thing, but I think it's in light of all the declassifications we're finally kind of getting now. We're getting a steady stream of them. And you see these people on social media talking about our elections again and how they're fraudulent, and they're going through these declassifications and doing all the, you know, the breaking news brigade on Twitter, like breaking news, look at what James Comey did and intelligence community, all this stuff. John Solomon, declass election. We need to fix elections. And they'll go and they'll call for the Save America Act and all that. And then we get to the primaries and they're analyzing these primary elections as if all of it's real, all of it's legitimate, and like, oh man, that candidate lost. If only he would have supported Trump in this way, or if only he would have done this, he shouldn't have. Like, what are you guys doing? And why are we why does anybody pay attention to these people? I know most people in our audience are on the same page as me, but for whatever reason, it's like, it's really grinding my gears lately that we're letting these people talk out of both sides of their mouth. And that's got to stop, because they're going to keep doing it and do it all the way through the midterms. And we're letting these people financially benefit off doing so. And that's the only reason they do it. It's the same thing with like certain subsets of the truth community where they're like, oh, elections are fraudulent, but we got to go vote in the midterms and all that stuff. Like, those are contradictions if you actually follow the argument down to its logical conclusion. Like, contradictions. You can't hold both positions at once. You can't simultaneously tell somebody that the election system is fraudulent, and then if nothing changes about it, that you need to go vote in that same system. That's a contradiction that you need to recognize without using big words and AI speak. Like, it's so stupid to me right now. I'm so annoyed.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, you and Chris obviously have talked about this the most, going back years now, but we've talked about it a million times on DPH in terms of waiting for permission, waiting for permission for the truth when you know it's the truth. And I think what irks us the most is when so-called truthers they're basically now at the point with the rhetoric you're talking about, the whole dialectic they have going about now that election fraud stuff is back in the news, and by news I mean official sources. We've got the actual Trump DOJ talking about elections again. Now they've got permission to talk about it, so now elections are the most important thing. But for 2 years, I'm talking about in the wake of 2024, when Badlands media were the only ones talking about how elections were still fake, still illegitimate, still unverifiable, and how it was still the biggest problem in the country. It is, people confuse our frustration. Some people confuse our frustration and think like, oh, you're just mad because you don't understand that these things take time and investigations take time and all that. No, we're annoyed because the people who claim they want to get to the same end goal were the ones railroading us for 2 years for talking about it openly and just waiting for permission for them to talk about it. And the analogy that just popped into my head is basically like, if you've got a race, a lot of truthers, it turns out, the election fraud narrative is a great example of it. They basically have made themselves into pace cars. They're essentially admitting, and we have people at Badlands, we have people beyond that say this. They say this privately. They believe in psychological operations. They believe in psychological warfare. They do believe in lying to people, including their followers, if they think it's part of what patriots want them to do. Who are the patriots? Who gave the patriots the authority? That's obviously a matter of interpretation. That's essentially acting as a pace car. So what used to be the directive, the self-appointed directive of the truth community, which was to locate and rally around the truth, now has become, we need to pace the normies, pace with them. And the problem with that mentality is it's like if you have pace cars that are then taking out the cars that are ahead in the race. If the end of the race is getting to the truth, the people who go there are the ones bringing everybody to the truth. I know Chris has talked about this in terms of like getting to the end zone or going back and trying to bring everybody forward. That's not how any of this works. And I think the frustration comes in when it's like, you wish more people would just admit that that's what they're doing. But the branding of truthing is that they're looking for the truth. But most of these people believe elections are fraudulent, but then don't talk about elections being fraudulent until they're given permission to do exactly that. So I just kind of wonder, what is the point? What point do you think you're serving in the disclosure or the justice phase or the truthing phase? Which phase are you in when you're waiting for permission?
Yeah, actually, I actually wonder if some of these people do believe that elections are fraudulent. I wonder.
Maybe they don't. Yeah.
Man, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've been working on like a little script for like a Devolution idea, like production, like just a quick 1 hour explainer. And the interview I did the other day with Rich Does Politics is kind of like why I wanted to do it. Because even though everybody's like saying it was a good interview and whatnot, I still feel like I myself was like all over the place. It was very scatterbrained. And so I want to like lay it out in my own order. And one of the things I've been thinking about is like, why do most people believe that our elections are legitimate? Because most of the people have not dug into election fraud like we have. Even probably some of our own audience haven't. Like Ash CanCon, they know more about election fraud than anybody I know, bar none. Like anybody, they can get into the minutia, the weeds with it. They know more than I do, and I feel like I know a lot. But and surface level, I think most people, they couldn't tell you why they believe the elections are even fraudulent. And I think most people probably couldn't tell you why they think they're not fraudulent and that they think they are legitimate, other than like, oh, well, the mainstream media told me or the intelligence community told me. Like, I don't think most people even can conceptualize it. And I think that goes for a lot of these social media people as well. Like they don't actually, they're just doing whatever they say whatever they have to say in the moment for the money. That's it. And then they move on to the next one. And whether those two things contradict each other, sometimes in the same day, they'll contradict each other. They don't care because their audience likes the breaking news stuff. They like things that sound good. They like to feel like they're winning. They like something to cheerlead for. And so they say it. But I don't think these people actually know what they're even saying.
Yeah. Yeah. What popped into my head, if we were looking to psychoanalyze just people in general, not just truthers that we're talking about, but like, do people believe, why don't more people believe in election fraud, or at least they don't believe it to the point. I think if you asked most Americans, do you think any fraud occurs in elections? The vast majority are going to say yes. But when you then ask, do you think it's a big issue? Do you think it changes the outcome of elections? A lot of them are going to say no. And I think that's part of the issue is I think whether you're talking about the truth community, the MAGA community, or normies, people are outcome determinative. And we saw this firsthand.
What do you mean by that?
So we saw this on November, whatever it was, 2024. Heading into it, within hours of that night, there were people that in the truth community, people that have been talking about election fraud for years and years and years, that if you ask them 12 hours before the 2024 election, can election fraud change the outcome of United States elections, they would have said yes. And then after Donald Trump was declared the winner, they changed their answer to no. Or at least they changed it and qualified the answer to it's overstated, it's not as big of a deal, we don't need to focus on it. When I'm saying outcome determinative, sometimes it really is as simple as MAGA people and truthers that have held themselves as something better than MAGA normies, which is not the case. Once they were told the thing that made them feel good, and they were told it not just by the media, but by Trump himself, hey, I'm your president now, I won the election, we overwhelmed the fraud. They don't care about the problem because they've been given the solution that they want. They've been given the story that they want. They're happy that Donald Trump won. It's the same thing if you're watching sports. It really is this simple. You're watching sports and a flag gets thrown against your player and you immediately say it's bullshit. And then when a flag gets thrown on the other team, you immediately say it's a good call. And instead of looking at like, hey, this reffing team is kind of they're sort of changing the outcome of this game by making some of these calls.
I think you're thinking of outcome determinative is not what that means. Outcome determinative is like without something, the outcome would have been completely different. It's not changing based on whatever the outcome is every time. You know what I mean?
I'm saying their behavior is outcome determinative. Their behavior, what they think about the election apparatus, is entirely dependent on who wins the election.
That's not what outcome determinative means, though. That's why I'm super. That's why I was super confused. It's like something being outcome determinative. Let me look it up. Because I'm pretty sure something being outcome determinative means like without something, without, like in legal cases, without a piece of evidence or whatever, it's the entire thing changes.
Term.
That thing
That's
is
not how I'm using it, but
well, yeah. There's no other way to use it. I don't think, though.
They're words. You can actually just use words based on the definitions of the words.
I know, but it's a specific thing I've never heard of used in that context, which is why I'm super confused by what you're saying. Yeah, outcome determinative means capable of changing the result of a case or a decision. Rule is outcome determinative if choosing one rule rather than another would substantially change who wins or loses. See, now I get what you're saying. You're not using it in that context.
Yeah, I'm using it. I don't know what other words to use, but
they're there's
dependent.
There's a phrase for that. People who like just go with the flow, go with the wind. Like, what is it? Something in the chat will know.
Yeah. Well, either way, what I mean is they will retroactively change their beliefs to coincide with whatever the outcome is that they're told, whatever makes them feel good. So, like I said about a sports team, your receiver gets a flag. You're like, bullshit. The other one does. You say it's fine. We all do this, but you just apply this. I think, especially people in the truth community, don't think that they're that reductive in their thought process, but it's ultimately an emotional thought process. And I think that's what a lot of people are. And unfortunately, and this is the last point I'd make on it, is Trump, by his public communications over the years, has played into this. And I'm going to excuse him for it. But what I mean by that is, I think you could argue that one of the more damaging ways Trump has communicated about elections, even though we say he calls them fake, he has called them fake, okay? Here's some criticism. Donald Trump is the one who has been using the terminology, we can overwhelm the fraud. And that, I've sort of recognized that when I'm dealing with like a truther person, an InfoWar person who doesn't give a shit about elections to the point that we do at Badlands, they usually defer to that. They usually don't say that there is no fraud. They usually don't even say that they don't think fraud can determine the outcome of elections. They say the reason we need to keep participating in the fake elections is because Donald Trump tells us that if we participate in them, we can overwhelm the fraud. The reason I'll excuse him for that is going back to what we bring up a lot on this show, which is the Rich Higgins memo, and talking about Donald Trump operating in a battle space defined by the left or defined in a certain way. He is operating in a certain battle space. There are reasons he chooses to communicate about these things in the way he does. And it ultimately just comes down to, we have chosen to not operate in the battle space that Trump is operating in. In fact, my opinion is, if we, the larger we, the American people, and part of the MAGA core, can affect any sort of change, we can only affect that kind of change by expressly not participating in the battle space in which Trump has to operate. We don't have to operate in that battle space, right? We're not elected officials. We're not like trying to psyop people. A lot of truthers, though, I think this, besides incentive structures, a lot of them that like earnestly believe in doing the voting thing and all that, they're basically pacing with Trump and they're operating in the battle space he's operating in. But the whole advantage to being a civilian and to operating the way we do is that we don't have to. There's no reason. We're not bound by any of the stuff Trump is bound by. And Ash and I were talking about this recently, and even you and I think last week, were talking about civilian-military alliance and public-private partnerships and a lot of this stuff going back and forth. I think one of the things I wish the truth community would remind themselves of is that if Trump needs you, he needs you to not operate how he is operating because he can already operate there. Everybody can already operate where he's operating. The advantage is not having to.
Yeah. I mean, Trump, it's you can't take him at face value with anything he says. He's always but we have a we have a rant from Alpha here in the chat that we should discuss for a little bit. But before we do have another sponsor that we can get to. But you know what? I'm thinking I might wait on that one a little bit. Maggie Temi 1831 over in the YouTube says, for $20, my favorite Badlands host. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you so much. We also got 100 joules from Melissa Swancut 896.
Shout out to Babbage, who always tells me if somebody sends me a super chat because I don't see them. I do a pretty good job of
figure out my. I do a pretty good job of keeping tabs on that over there now. But here's Alpha Warrior Show. This should be fun. If the immediate truth gave your child a high probability of dying, but delaying that truth gave them a real chance to survive, which would you choose? BB, you can go first if you'd like.
Well, this is definitely not a straw man argument at all.
Or a false dilemma, one of those things.
Yes. Yeah. I Alpha, like, I think what you maybe don't get is that we know why you operate the way you do. You explain it openly, just like you do with this question, and that's okay. Like that, you're allowed to operate that way. You're allowed to believe that. I don't. I'm vehemently opposed to it. I think that type of framing is the problem. That's the type of megalomaniacal sort of fatalistic framing that people who consider themselves superior to other people believe. So you think that you have information that you have determined to be true that other people do not have. I don't believe you. I believe that you think that. I think that you think you know the whole plan and that you've got insiders and that you're a secret white hat or you have secret white hats that you know, and you believe that. So under that framing, with this question, it seems to me you believe telling the people the truth would harm them. And I can reconcile that and say that you earnestly believe that, and you believe you're doing the right thing by lying to them. You told me a few months ago you have never watched Watchmen. You should watch Watchmen, and you should think about, I'm curious about who you think the good guy is at the end of Watchmen. Because that should, you might have to pray after watching that one. Usually, in most of American history, in most of human history, in moral history, the people who were lying over and over and over again, even for reasons they thought were good, are not the ones that are lionized or put up on pedestals. So it's just a different way of approaching this stuff. Now, granted, I just said I think Donald Trump is operating in that battle space. You are not. You are not, Alpha. That's my point. You have chosen to operate in a battle space that Donald Trump has to operate in. You do not have to operate in that battle space. So when I say I can understand that framing, I understand that framing with regards to Donald Trump. But I do not extend that to anybody who calls themselves a truther or says they are speaking the truth when they are simultaneously saying they don't believe in telling people the truth because it might harm them. You just have to be honest about which one of those things you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with that rant, Alpha, and love you, brother, but like giving us a hypothetical where there's only like one answer, otherwise we come off as like the immoral people. It's like a trap almost. But the real question is whether or not like you can actually prove that revealing the truth actually creates the danger you're claiming. You know what I mean? And like whether withholding it prevents the danger, because that's what you're trying to justify. And who gets to decide that? That we're assuming that these people have our best interests in mind. We don't know that for sure. And like, when do we actually get the truth? That's another great question I would love to know. And it, like, using that premise, you could justify literally any deception possible just by claiming, trust me, if without it, you'd be dead. Like if we told you the truth, you'd be dead. Like you can justify literally anything. And honestly, that's something the enemy would want us to think.
Exactly.
The enemy would want that for us. The truth community, what I think Trump wants from us is to pursue the truth at all costs all the time. And I doubt getting the truth is going to automatically kill my child. That's ridiculous. But anyway, we can move on from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole, like I said with Watchmen, it's the whole, I know some people think it's silly and fiction and all that, but they're great stories for a reason. They're able to distill characters into these moral frames, build a whole character around these moral arguments. Ozymandias, who is a hero and one of the Watchmen, has that mentality the entire time and is the bad guy because he's outcome determinative. So what is the greater good? Greater good arguments are not good. Alpha, I don't know if you remember, maybe you can just put it in the chat. There was a movie recently that we were talking about, I think on OnlyLands, that you liked a certain character who was the villain and you didn't know he was the villain. Oh, I can't remember. I think I know one example was when Chris and I did A Few Good Men. Is that the one with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise? I think it is. You Can't Handle the Truth. And Alpha was like, yeah, Jack Nicholson's character is totally right. Which, hey, like, you can definitely come out of that movie with that framing, but that is just, it's not the intention of what that story is trying to tell you. And you can disagree with the story, but, it's an ends justify the means. It's an extremist position. And it's a binary position. It's a false binary, and it gives you way too much power in your own mind. So I would say it usually comes with a superiority complex, and it's something that you should work on.
Yeah, well, so Alpha responded with another one. Nope, truth must be told. Battlefield has to be ready for it. Look at any country that operated with truth when they weren't prepared. If you're wrong, it's the end. But now I feel like
Please give examples.
This is a different argument altogether, though, because before it was like it was all about either the truth could kill them, but a lie wouldn't. And now you're talking more like battlefield secrecy, which, like, operational secrecy, we understand that, but that's not the same as like directly lying to the public. Like delaying certain sensitive information, totally get it. I understand it. I may not like it all the time, but I understand some of the justifications for it, but directly feeding and justifying feeding false information to people for their own good, that's where I kind of draw the line.
Well, this is why I think, going back to the election situation, this is why I'm talking about battle spaces, because literally, just even get away from 5th generation warfare. Just let's look at, there's a fraudulent election system to whatever degree. There's an insurgency within the United States that we would all broadly agree Donald Trump and patriots behind him are attempting to take down, right? There's a legal process to that. There's a justice process to that if we go in the direction we want to go in. That's a battle space. That means that anybody, a patriot, a white hat, quote unquote, anybody who is involved directly in the counterinsurgency must operate according to that battle space, and I agree with that. They can't say certain things because they'll be circumventing national security laws. They can't say certain things because they'd be compromising ongoing investigations, or they'd be invalidating certain things. All these justifications, right? But those are true justifications for a president, for a commander-in-chief, for an attorney general, for an FBI director, for anybody that is operating in the counterinsurgency. My point is that truthers who behave in that way also are not in that battle space. You are not part of the investigation. You are not bound by any of this. So pretending that you're bound by the same battle space is wrong. And I would say it's wrong. It's provably factually wrong. And my opinion is that it's morally wrong. Like, as American civilians, we can look at a court case that's going on and say whatever the fuck we want about it. Do you have to wait for the court to determine something before you as an individual pass judgment or say, I think this is the truth? I think this should be the outcome. No. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. So it'd be like you're commenting on a court trial and somebody says, like, you're really not supposed to say what you think happened or what you think the truth is until the prosecutor gives you permission to say that. I can say, no, I understand the prosecutor is bound in a certain battle space, but I'm not. And that's the key difference, I think. So all these justifications, not only do I disagree with them, Alpha, but my point is you're making justifications for people, in my opinion, not speaking for John, that I don't need those justifications for. I already ascribe or assign those justifications to a figure like Donald Trump, or else I wouldn't support him if I thought what he was doing was immoral. Yeah. Where I draw that line of demarcation is I do not assign that responsibility, that power, or that morality to you or anybody who just has a Twitter account and a Rumble show. We're not secret white hats. We're not, if we're part of the plan, we all get to determine what part of the plan we play in it. So, I think those are major differences.
I'm just confused. Like, you literally moved the goalpost in real time, Alpha. That's my thing. And I know we were supposed to do a show at one point to talk about some of this, and we haven't, but we should line it up. But you started with the framing. You created the framing of you lie to your child, you kill him. You tell the truth to your child, you kill him. You lie to him, you save his life. And now you moved it to, like, secrecy is okay if not everybody's ready for it. And they're different things. So, like, are you arguing for secrecy, like operational secrecy, or for affirmative deception, like lying to people directly? Like, which is it, and which are you okay with? And I honestly feel like the people aren't ready for the truth is like the oldest trick in the book. It's like the oldest excuse in the book for lying to people. And once you justify that for somebody, they're gonna lie their ass off to you for eternity. Like, why would they ever tell you the truth once you allow them to lie to you in the first place? Like, why give these people any excuses? You don't need to. You don't need to. They don't need you to give them excuses. You don't need to, and they don't need you to. If Trump is doing what we think they're doing, if anything, he wants the opposite. He wants. That's the point I'm trying to make. Exactly. Is that like what if you're if I want to accept all of the framing that Alpha that you're saying, Alpha, and again assign it to the quote unquote white hats. What I'm saying is that's not what you are, and you just said in the chat who said I'm a white hat. Okay, then if you're not saying that, then you're admitting you're not bound by that same stuff. That's all I'm saying.
saying you might be right about what Trump is bound by, what the quote unquote patriots are bound by. You're not bound by that. I'm not bound by that. Nobody here is bound by that. So we don't have to endorse it.
Yeah, reread rant. That's not what I said.
Which
you
one?
said
Truth must be told.
If the immediate truth gave your child a high probability of dying, but delaying the truth gave them a real chance to survive, which would you choose? That was the first one you sent. You set the framework, a ridiculous one. Then you said, nope, truth must be told. Battlefield has to be ready for it. Look at any country that operated with truth when they weren't prepared. If you're wrong, it's the end. I'd love to hear some examples of those countries. At all costs, that's a moral feel good, but not everyone actually signs up to fight at all costs. I don't know, man. I think we're just in disagreement. While I understand there's operational secrecy, I understand PSYOPs, I understand all that stuff. I feel like I was one of the first people researching PSYOPs. I feel like we've had this exact conversation before. I'm not okay with lying, even with that. I'm just tell us the truth. And Ghost in the chat actually had a really good point. If the truth would break the public, then the public deserves to be broken. Like, that's where I'm at too. That's where a lot of people are at. I'm just done with these damn excuses. And I think it's ridiculous that we're still giving excuses to these people, whether we believe they're good guys or not. 10 years in, this is what the enemy wants from us, is to us just keep excusing away bad behavior. We don't need to do that anymore. If us excusing away bad behavior, if us demanding the truth prevents us from winning, do we even, like, what are we winning at that point? What are we going to win if us demanding the truth loses it for us? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're going to win new rulers. I mean, Chris says this, in his own framing. We're going to win new, secret controllers and rulers who get to determine what's right and what's wrong. And again, Alpha's talking about delaying the truth, meaning, oh, you got to say it someday. Well, that's a hugely slippery slope, but we don't have to go into that whole dialectic.
Who determines when?
Who determines when?
And who determines the truth? Like, who determines?
Yeah. And my point is that I always try to, basically, the way I argue is I try to, like, give as many concessions as I can. And even in this argument, if I give all the concessions and say, yep, I accept every single thing you've said, I accept Alpha's entire argument, it only applies to Donald Trump. It does not apply to me. It doesn't apply to John. It doesn't apply to Chris or to Alpha. So that's like saying that we're subverting the plan by talking about the truth.
He didn't say that here, technically.
No, but there'd be no point in talking about any of this if it wasn't the point, right? We're not saying, like, Donald Trump is doing anything wrong. We've never said that. This is part of the bullshit that goes on in the truth community now.
It sounds like a great GART panel, though.
Yeah, we do the same GART panel every time, and it's the same argument every time. It's that
Alpha says a lot of really nice things that people like to hear, though.
The implication is that we are communicating about the plan in the wrong way by saying what we think the truth is when we think we know it. And that's absurd. We've never denied that Donald Trump knows what he's doing. We've maintained steadfast support for what he's doing the entire time. And the implication of this line of questioning is that we don't understand what he's doing, or we're subverting what he's doing, which is fucking retarded.
Yeah.
And you twisted yourself into a bunch of knots as usual tonight, Alpha, by saying that you believe in telling the truth. Well, that's what we're doing, man. We're just not delaying it. We're telling the truth. We're not shitting on Trump. The whole night tonight, we're praising Trump and what he's doing. We're just saying, if we think we know the truth, then we're going to talk about what the truth is. And the struggle sessions about that, and the whole year the now attitude about that, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it's also got a limited shelf life. So, I don't know how long the delay is, but we'll see how that works out.
That one time that you were gone and I had him on the show, we talked about his red lines and stuff. He told me, and this is kind of a good example of what we're talking about. Like, he said his red line is the midterms. If we don't have the elections fixed by the midterms, then he's going to start demanding for fixes to elect. I don't want to misquote him, but his red line was the midterms. And my point was, like, well, if it's a red line item, isn't it just always like red line items don't have timestamps to them? They're just like, they're always red line items until the things are met, and then they're done. And you can call for those, like, you can ask for those, you can want those things. But I don't know. There's been this weird thing, and I think you kind of hit on it within the truth community. Like, we got so much shit because we never stopped demanding for the things that we wanted to be fixed. Even though we believe Trump was in the process of fixing those things.
We still believe that.
Yeah, we still believe all those things. We still believe things are good. We still believe, or whatever, the golden age is coming. But we believe that part of the process, at least some of us believe part of the process, is the feedback loop that Trump relies on is us demanding it and not just waiting for him to give it to us and waiting for him to tell us when it's okay for him to bestow the good things to us. Like, if we want the good things, we ask for it. We don't just wait for him to give it to us. It's just a different approach, kind of like you said. But I feel like no offense, Alpha, it's not necessarily you, but some of the way that you argue it like turns the audience against us. Like, you're in our chat, almost subverting us on our own show, and like getting some of the people in the audience to turn against us for our point of views. Like, if that makes sense. And it's just,
for people that are like, oh, don't unload
like, we don't
on
come
Alpha.
in your show.
Alpha's more than capable of being argued with strongly, so relax.
Yeah, and we'll do a show on this, but like, we don't come into your chat and like, we know you guys believe in voting in the midterms. There's some people that don't. We don't come in your chat and leave rumble rants that are like, hey man, people who say that you should vote in the midterms are retarded. You know what I mean? Like, or people who say they're going to vote in the midterms are going to kill their children. If I told you that if you voted in the midterms, you'd kill your children, but if you didn't vote in the midterms, he'd live, what would happen? Like, that's kind of what you're doing here, if we're being honest about it. So still love you, brother. Still love you, but come on. Anyway,
little fangish.
Show's over. No, just kidding. I don't know what else. I don't know where to go from here, though.
We could go into Morenz.
I feel like we need family counseling or something.
I mean, I don't see. This is the thing. This doesn't bother me, nor does audience reactions bother me anymore. Like, we can argue if we want to argue. And again, people don't unload on Alpha. If Alpha is totally fine. Somebody just said he's probably smiling right now. Like, if you come into the chat and you start offering all the things, you're gonna get the response, which he's totally fine with.
Yeah, I just have a little PTSD, guys, because there have been people in the past in Badlands who couldn't handle this conversation. Alpha, I believe, can. I know he can. I actually spoke with him on the phone the other day. He ain't going nowhere. Watch him now leave. But I have PTSD because there are people in the past. Some people have done it mid-show where they couldn't handle disagreement. They couldn't handle our take on things, and they would melt down over that and leave. And some people would leave and just like whatever go. Some people would leave and try to participate in the destruction of us, lawsuits against us, subversion against us. They would text our audience members. Like, there's been some real dirty shit that's been done to us. So I have a little PTSD when it comes to these kind of things. But I know that's not Alpha.
And by the way, for like the 5 accounts that just keep saying, this is pissing me off, Alpha needs to leave Badlands, blah, 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 blah. None of you watch our shit anyway. So like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Watch who you want to watch. Don't watch who you don't want to watch.
We love that. This is the friction, by the way. When we say embrace,
there's a lot of
friction,
safe spaces.
This is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. This is what the founders actually intended, is harsh disagreement. We could get to the point of actually like shooting guns at each other, and that would still be in line with what the founders did, because some of those guys killed each other
They did kill each other. Yep. It might get to that point.
Nah, I doubt it. Not with Alpha. Not with Alpha. I could see myself wanting to shoot you every now and then, but like, I think I could handle a disagreement with Alpha here and there and be just fine. But you should come to GART, because you'll get these conversations live and in person. Badlandsmedia.tv/events. We're going to be in Vegas in September what, 17th or something? That's a comm, by the way. We chose that on purpose. I'm not even convinced that's the date. Let me double check. Yes.
I like the new
September 17th.
The brand new accounts.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that come in and do that.
We get a lot of that.
Ash says everyone needs to calm down. I will not calm down, Ash, and I will not.
Not a calm
be told
guy.
What to do by a woman.
Never going to be a calm guy.
Alpha says I will not leave Badlands. I have to save these retards, so they'll have to save me. Yeah,
the calm
mutual
guys.
saving. When two people try to save each other, like through baptism or whatever, I think both sides end up drowning. So that's where we're headed.
Right.
Okay, let's move on though let's move on to this. This is a good one. On the topic of, it's not directly voting, but let me read you something here, BB. U.S. sanctions International Criminal Court president and senior trial lawyer. I want to read something that Rubio said. Rubio said both individuals have directly engaged in efforts by the ICC to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute officials whose government has not consented to ICC jurisdiction. In the State Department press statement, Rubio called the ICC a corrupt and fatally politicized supranational court that has maliciously abused its authority and exceeded its mandate. He said the United States will not tolerate its assault on state sovereignty. So Rubio says that this corrupt, fatally politicized organization that has maliciously abused its authority and exceeded its mandate, that we have not consented to, that you should opt out. You should opt out of that. Guess what, guys? That is the United States government itself. That is our own that is our own court system, our own government, our own elections, all that stuff. They're telling you that opting out is the answer. Just saying. Yeah. But that's only when it's the ICC. It's not when our own government does that to us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought this was based.
Leaving aside TV characters of it all, and I basically only trust Trump, all of which still stands. If I were just reading kind of the battle space as it's occurring, Marco is the best. He's been on like the best run in terms of people in Trump's orbit. Obviously, I'm very partial to Scott Bessent, but that's in the financial realm.
You just want him to bang you? You want him to fang you?
Yeah. I'm partial to that. What?
Before I let you continue, did you see somebody the other day, like a big truth account was like,
oh, huge
I had
truth
no
account.
idea Bessent was gay. Like, come on.
MJ Truth or CJ Truth, whatever the hell that giant account is. That was embarrassing. And, it's like we don't know everything about every character, but yeah, I don't know if you guys saw that giant, massive truther account that was like, I just found out Scott Bessent is gay. I mean, I don't care, but did you guys know that? It's like,
Jesus, dude.
It's the most known thing
about him.
Like for years and years and years and years. Yeah. But it just it really does show that to be a decoder, which he is, and hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, whatever it is, all you have to do is just look at whatever MAGA is talking about on Twitter. You say something positive about that subject, and then you amass a following. It's like, that's it. That's the recipe. Those are the incentive structures. Trust me, my eye is more irritated than it is irritating you guys.
I think he's telling you the most irritating part is because you're rubbing your eye. Like, it's irritating for all of us, but I think it's most irritating for your own eye that you rub it.
It is pretty bad. I'm trying to rub near it now. Yeah, that was pretty bad. But I was just saying, Rubio, just like taking it at face value, what he's being deployed on. And I know it's basically just Rubio giving quotes. I don't think he's actually in charge of these things.
Oh, no, I don't think so either.
Trump has
they were literally doing the same thing in Trump's first term, calling the ICC illegitimate and everything.
Yeah, they're making him the face of things that are good and positive. And I dropped an anecdote like 6 months ago. I don't know if it was on this show, but I think it was, that my in-laws in Canada pointed out, like, they'll occasionally try to like throw me a bone, especially after we've had an alpha style argument. And they'll be like, well, we're not saying everything you say is crazy. For example, we think Marco Rubio is pretty reasonable. And I just thought that was notable. And you could read that either way. You can either read that as like he's part of the machine and it's probably not a good thing that Canadians like him, or CNN Canadians.
It was like 99-1 vote to get him in. Like,
yeah.
What do we say about when the entire Senate is bipartisan? Anything like that's probably not a great sign when the uniparty is all in on one person.
I'll just say though, in his defense, when we kind of play the TV characters game, the ops that JD Vance is part of, the narrative ops that JD Vance is a part of, in my opinion, have not made him look good. Like there have been some where he said the right thing and the Trump thing and whatever, right? I don't think he's made any giant foot in the mouth type of things. But in 2026, JD Vance has not come off well. And I'm not talking about to normies. I mean, even to InfoWar people.
What do you mean?
For example, during the Iran war, and he just shut his mouth about it. He shut his mouth about it after like 2 months. But JD was parading around the world pretending to be negotiating with the Iranians. I think he was over in Switzerland at one point. And he would be giving interviews to the press about the decision-making process with Iran while Trump was live tweeting the opposite. This happened a few times back in March and April. And he kind of stopped doing that. And I think there's been a lot of moments like that when JD is sitting down with a Joe Rogan, with a whatever podcaster, and he is trying to illuminate Trump's agenda, but he clearly doesn't seem to know what it is. He doesn't seem to know where things are going. I think he tends to come off a little silly with that. The most recent example was, I think it was on Rogan. I think he was on there pretty recently again, and he talked about the Epstein Bindergate situation and just got roasted for it all across the internet because he was like, we really messed that up. And then when pressed, well, how'd you mess it up? And what more is there? And what more do people need to see? There was just a bunch of non-committal answers. And, to relate this back to Rubio, I don't think that Rubio has come off badly. So whether we think he's read in on anything or not, like his overall standing in terms of what ops he's a part of and the things he says, I haven't had a problem with essentially anything Rubio has said for 2 years. So again, I'm not like stumping for him to replace Trump. I'm just saying it's kind of I see it as an interesting contrast where I don't think those are the two guys that are being talked about everywhere as like the heirs apparent that Trump won't endorse. I think one of them has been given much better narratives to handle than the other one.
Yeah, I don't trust either of them because they're being given to us. You know what I mean? Like the powers that be are the ones giving them to us as a replacement. That's probably not a good sign. I'm still all on board the Trump 2028 thing. I feel like there's a weird, and maybe Alpha can talk about this. There's a weird thing lining up. I'm seeing people online, the Truth Community, the Q accounts especially, talking about Flynn running in 2028 as part of the plan. What if we had a Trump versus Flynn 2028? If we had legitimate elections, but who would they support? I feel like that would be the ultimate conundrum. That'd be the ultimate pickle.
It would be shocking to see people not support Trump.
Right, wouldn't it? But some would do it, I bet.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm still all on board the Trump 2028 train.
Me too, until proven otherwise.
Until it passes. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be 2030 by then because they're going to postpone these elections.
Yeah.
And we may not have them till maybe everything gets delayed a little bit. We'll see. We'll see. And that's speculation. I just want them to postpone these upcoming elections. We could talk about the Comey stuff. There's really nothing like new here. We're just getting new case updates every now and then, which I think are interesting, but I'm still fully on board. I think this is almost a way to get him off the hook. I think Comey is guilty of some serious stuff. Like it's out there in very publicly available documents. He has leaked classified information to the New York Times. John Durham investigated him for it and said, we don't need to charge him, even though he admitted to doing it. The people he leaked it to admitted that he did it, didn't bring charges. Super weird. I think the whole Russiagate stuff, I mean, you can go on and on and on. There's a laundry list of things that I believe James Comey is guilty of. I think this 8647 thing, of all the things that he should be indicted for, this is the weakest, the gayest, the most Scott Bessent-ish, gayish. But we're getting new stuff, like some interesting things in there. Like the government did a search of all their databases for like the term 86, meaning kill, and didn't have anything in there, which I think is notable. But they're still bringing this case. Also, you're getting text messages like 2 minutes before he posted it. His own wife texted him a meaning of what 86 meant. It's like, it's in restaurant, industry. It means to cancel an order or something. So it is kind of fun seeing like the back and forth and the legalese going on here, but I still think it's pretty lame. It's more so just document entertainment for me while I'm waiting for more interesting documents to come out.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to people who are like throw them in jail for this. It's more just I don't care about it because I don't think if if these people that were part of the intelligence community, which are really as close to the nucleus of the insurgency as you can be, I do not think the predicate for visiting justice upon them came via a 2025 Instagram post, right? Like, in other words, if we needed this to put James Comey away, something might have got a little squirrely in there.
Yeah.
For the whole counterinsurgency. So that's more why I don't really care about it. It's not because I don't think this figure is central to the coup against Trump, or, you know, maybe committed some little bit of treason. But I don't think that it was the shells on the beach. And I do think it matters, especially, let's get away from Comey, to the people who would be like, oh, you're dooming. I don't think this is dooming. If Comey was part of an insurgency, and in legal terms, if he was part of a grand conspiracy, then going after him for stuff like this is not really part of that grand conspiracy. And you can make a strong argument that you would be potentially compromising that other investigation, which I think you said when this first
what I said when it first happened is, I do believe he's probably most likely part of a bigger grand conspiracy thing, but let's look at the normies, whether he gets brought down by that stuff or not. This is now his second time they've gone after him, right? This is the second one. And if this fails and the grand conspiracy comes out, that's going to be a third one. And his defense and all the media's defense and everybody's defense and everything, they were seeding this before Trump even got back in. He's just going to go in there and he's going to politically persecute his enemies. And that's what they're saying about this. And then if you had a third one on there, like, most of these people aren't going to like read into what's actually happening with any of this stuff. They're going to get their interpretation of it from the mainstream media, right? They're not going to be telling them the truth about it. They're going to get that like, oh yeah, this is just ridiculous political persecution, and they're going to continue to believe it. That's my issue with it. I would much rather none of these other, to me, insignificant things. And no, I'm not saying that somebody calling for the assassination of Trump is insignificant. I'm not. I just don't think that's necessarily what he was doing with his social media post. People are kind of trying to frame it that's what he's doing, but it's going to be difficult to prove that's what he's doing. I just think it's giving him and other people who may get indicted by the grand conspiracy thing more fodder for like, see, this is just Trump going after his political enemies.
Yeah, and ultimately, I don't think that's going to save them. But I agree that would be the intent. So they're either way, you don't want to feed into it.
It's not about saving them though, but like if you think of what the enemy would want, like cornered animal type situation, all their best players are being taken off the game board. Like, what do? You do the what's the Samson option? Is that what Israel has, right? Like if they get cornered, they just nuke everybody. Yeah. Well, okay, let's get the country into a spot where they're like on the edge of a civil war, and let's just burn the country down with us as we go down with it. You know what I mean? Like that's
what I see.
We're so lucky
that all those other regimes didn't do that. All those other Mad Men regimes with nuclear weapons never did that.
Yeah, right.
They allowed themselves to get killed and cooed instead of pressing that button.
Yeah, that's a great point. But that's what I see. Like they would, best case scenario for them, if they cannot outlast Trump, is to like if you don't get it, or if we don't get it, then you don't either type of situation.
Yeah.
Just like in 2020 when we had the proof, the story that came out, the Time magazine in February of 2021, where they're like, look at all these different groups we had all across the country that we could have texted on a moment's notice to be out there protesting and destroying the country if Trump would have been declared the winner. Like that's their best case scenario. If they don't get what they want, they tear the country apart. So that's what I see this as. What else? What time is it, by the way? Ooh, 11:20. We've been going almost 2 hours.
Do our little CDC thing. I mean, the Morens. That was a.
Yeah. Did we talk about
that? We just mentioned it during the intro. But
okay. Well.
So we had. I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to read the story. Former Fauci advisor pleads guilty to conspiracy to defraud the U.S. A former senior advisor to NIAID Director Anthony Fauci, Dave Morens, pleaded guilty Tuesday in federal court to conspiracy to defraud the U.S. according to the plea, Moren's co-conspirator 1, which CanCon said was Dayshak, and this co-conspirator 2, which was like, I don't remember, Urix or something, and others worked during the COVID-19 pandemic to evade FOIA requests and Federal Records Act after NIH terminated a bat COVID research grant that included a subaward, blah, 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 blah. This guy worked under Fauci. There's text messages coming out where Fauci was part of conversations where they were doing this. I think this is why he pled the 5th, because he has more exposure than, I think it's more that than, the whole Biden, not a penny. You can't plead the 5th or whatever. You can't be pardoned for state crimes. So.
Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, this is one of those, obviously this isn't the end state, but these are some of those things happening this year, including the SPLC indictments and charges that continue that I think are really positive and are just signs of like, we've got this grand conspiracy in so many different fronts. With Russiagate, we're talking about a literal insurgency. This is maybe like an insurgency within the insurgency or a separate conspiracy, but all these people are tied together. When you look at the COVID conspiracy, the COVID conspiracy is also tied into the election conspiracy, which is the insurgency. So all of these things are ultimately related. So when you see like a Fauci advisor actually being convicted by the Trump DOJ of conspiracy, and I know that that's a legal term, but it's also just great. I think it's not wise to just put it over in this. Some people put it over in this other bucket, like that's completely unrelated to this stuff. That's just about the COVID stuff. All of this stuff is related, and I mean literally, it's legally all related. Because if you've got intent here, you've got intent of, well, why was there a fake pandemic? Why did they do the lockdowns? At least a part of it, we believe, was to fraudulently steal an election from Donald Trump, right? So part of the grand treasonous conspiracy. Another couple points on this would be, so number one, it's unknown when the actual criminal investigation was started. The DOJ didn't disclose that and doesn't have to disclose that. Obviously, the charges were revealed, but we don't know when it started. The other thing is he pled. This was a plea deal. So, and the terms of plea deals are usually not disclosed either in cases like this. So, if you were to ask me, like, Trump DOJ convicting this guy, a Fauci aide, of conspiracy and him signing a plea deal or them giving him a plea deal, do I think that's a good thing or a bad thing? If you had told me that months ago, I would have said that probably is a good sign. And then as you said in the intro there, a lot of the stuff that came out during this investigation with him and that's being disclosed here, as you said, are the communications with Fauci. So it's hard to believe this doesn't lead to meaningful action against him. We've stood on a lot of rugs before, but it's been very rare that we're standing on rugs in which people that are part of the rug are being convicted of conspiracy. And I don't know if I said this before the show, or I think I said this at the start of the show. If we were doing this show in 2020 or 2021 and we saw this headline or we knew this was going to happen in 2026, we would have, I think, had a totally different, or a lot of people would have a totally different tone about it at that time. There's so many times these things happen on a delay and then it's like, okay, does this really matter? This was back in 2020. What matters really is where does it go from here? And like, it would genuinely surprise me if we don't see actual action against Fauci at this point. And hopefully the biggest thing is the whole apparatus. You said at the start of the show, we need to go after the intelligence apparatus. Well, obviously, any of these convictions related to the CDC, the NIAID, all this kind of stuff should be a predicate for completely dismantling or wholesale changing how all these organizations operate.
Doesn't that kind of show the harm of the delay, though? Like delaying the truth and the harm it does? Because had this come out in 2021, the impact that could have had on things versus coming out now, like where a lot of people are just kind of like brushing over it. I mean, some people, like I talked about on my show, other people I know talked about on their show. It's not, we're not trying to downplay it, but I think, like, I'm thinking of my text buddies Like back in 2021, had this come out, we would have talked about this for days.
Huge. Right.
But like they didn't even say, nobody said a word about it today. Like they've almost like, okay, well, yeah, obviously we moved on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I think even this being counted as some kind of major success needs to lead. I look at the fact that it was a conviction, the fact that the charges were conspiracy. That means there's more than one person involved by definition, and the fact that he took a plea deal.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the person is not Fauci. Like one of the people that are in the conspiracy is not Fauci, but maybe there's another thing. But you always got to toy with the idea, or at least I've been toying with the idea. I know a lot of the people like to talk about these people will not be able to walk down the streets. My refrain on that, whenever it's been brought up to me, is, well, one, that implies that they'll have the ability to do so, which means like we may find out about a lot of the bad things these people did, but we may not see them behind bars. And so while they have the ability to walk down the streets, they won't be able to, or whatever, because people will be so mad at what they did or whatever. Like we may not see some of these big names behind bars. We may not get the accountability and justice that we want and maybe deserve. But maybe in a certain sense, that's the exact amount of accountability and justice that I'm trying to do a Lord of the Rings quote type thing, but couldn't pull it off. Whatever. Yeah. It's getting late now, man.
Justice is never early, nor is it late.
There we go.
It arrives precisely when it means to.
Nailed it. We do have one more sponsor I want to get to, and then we can go through the Rumble rants and whatnot. Let me get these guys pulled up here. It's this new one. I'm actually like very intrigued and interested in this thing. I'm curious if you've heard about it yet, BB. Think about what passes through your family group chat in a normal week. School pickups, vacation plans, photos of your children, medical updates, home addresses, and financial decisions. You trust the people in that group, but how much should you have to trust the company operating the app? Keat gives families another option. It's a free messaging and video calling app built peer-to-peer with end-to-end encryption and no centralized company database holding the family conversation. Keat does not track metadata, and nobody needs to provide a phone number or email to even join. You can create a family group, share files and photos, and make audio or video calls, all without turning your home life into another corporate data profile. Visit keat.io/badlandsdph. That's Keat, KEET.io/badlandsdph. You can download it for free. You can invite one person you trust and start a conversation that belongs to you. So I want to talk about this for a little bit. Keat. I was like talking with Jessica Storm the other day about like the ads that we're getting through from Rumble Studio, and this one is like, man, they're paying like decent. Like, what is this thing? And I went to sign up for it, and it's completely free, and there's no like ads on it or anything. I'm just like, okay, well, who owns this? Like, what kind of business model is to like pay for people to run ads on something that they don't like charge for, or run ads on the thing itself to make money back on? You know what I mean? Like, just seemed like a weird business thing. It is owned by essentially the guy who owns Tether.
Interesting.
And there's like a whole bunch of like future business ideas, like peer-to-peer stuff, video calling, and maybe a future home. Like I'm honestly playing around with it now. Maybe a future home for Badlands chats and stuff. Maybe even we could maybe even stream there in the future. Like you'll be able to send Bitcoin on it and stuff. Like, look into it, guys. I would encourage you to download it. I'm very intrigued. Tether, their association with Rumble, like most popular stablecoin. Like, so we've talked some interesting things about Tether in the past, having to do with future economy things. I don't want to get into weeds on that. So I can see your autism showing right now.
No, I was just going to say on Telegram, this is a different angle. We've liked Telegram, but what's his name? Pavel Durov, I think.
Yep.
Starting to get a little squirrely out there. He's starting to cooperate with some authorities in some ways that are very antithetical to the Telegram mission statements. And also the bot problem on Telegram is unlike any platform I have ever seen. It is by far the worst botting platform of all time, even though it's great for its functionality. So yeah, if there's ever like a legit version of that that's not run by some sort of globalist double agent, it would be great.
Yeah. So check it out, guys. Again, that's keat.io/badlandsdph. And I can even give you guys my @. I was saying we should start like a Badlands group chat on there and see how it goes. It's at John, Jon, Badlands 22. Add me. Oh, I even got some requests already.
Wow.
Nice. Tamarack Flats. What's up?
Oh my God.
Let's send them back right now. Just say hi. It's working. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by this. So check it out, guys. All right. We got a Badlands boost from 1027JS, and Badlands boost for those who are new to the channel, badlandsmedia.tv/boost. You can essentially leave us a Rumble rant, but you don't have to do it live during the show. You can do it anytime, and we'll read it live on air next time we do a show. And the nice thing about it is, like with Rumble, we love and support Rumble, YouTube, whatever, CommyTube. We appreciate rants on both those platforms, but they take up to 20, 30. Rumble, I think, is 20. YouTube can be 30 or even 50%. With Badlands Boost, we only take the processing fee away from the creators, like just to cover the cost of the processing. Everything else goes to the host of the show. So it's a great way to support us too. 1027JS, my fellow North Dakotan, says, thanks, guys. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you, as always. We got a whole bunch of Rumble rants, and I'll probably skip by the alpha ones we already read, just so we don't incite an erection around here.
What a
Flying Storm.
Piece of shit.
What?
Just kidding.
What'd you say?
I said, what a total piece of shit that guy is.
Oh, stop it.
I'm just kidding. There's the 3 people in chat. They're like, wait.
I know. It's probably the people who are participating in the lawsuit against us, trying to like drum up the BS, them and their sock accounts. Flying Storm, I read that one earlier about the email. I did read this alpha one earlier, but I want to read it again because he added to it. BB does look like a badass right now. Gotta admit, looks like he got like a bar fight. And then he says gay bar. And I think that's very appropriate. Flying Storm says, john@badlandsmedia.org. Just check your email later. You might find a queue somewhere. Little link and plug. I will do that. I think I saw your email come in. Guido Higgins, Fang not wanting to be a double agent meant she wouldn't cross the double yellow line. She wanted to go commando. Love it. Flying Storm, when the FBI let her leave the country, don't think they knew. Yes, they let her go. They sure did seem to. Flying Storm, don't forget Swalwell was sitting on the Intel Committee. We did mention that. Alec Cat BSSM, Mr. Tittybank here. Oh, man, I was going to reach out to you, and I never did. We never had that call, but we will one of these days. FBI's in town investigating Shasta County voter registrations office. They confiscated 2024 ballots. DHS arriving this week. Tina Peters coming in as consultant. John, I sent you a text. I will look for that and get back to you. That is interesting. And then the Alpha Warrior Show, we already went down that rabbit hole. Final Demand for $20 says, John, wasn't there a certain conversation you were supposed to have with Alpha that to date has never happened? We need that. Yeah, I feel like we kind of had it.
We've kind of had this conversation a million times.
Yeah.
But a lot of them admittedly have been at GARTs, which is why you guys got to either come to GART or get your virtual GART tickets. And you'll probably see this argument again.
Jordan J28, if those of us, for $17, by the way, thank you. Those of us who are awake start checking out because there has never been any accountability. Do you think that matters at all to the White Hats? That's a good question. That is a great question.
We don't know what their
I don't
victory...
speak for them.
Yeah.
So it matters to me.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It's always worth considering, as you said earlier. We don't know who the White Hats are outside of Donald Trump. And even him, that's what we think. The biggest thing, though, is we don't know what their victory conditions are, which is why it's a good question. And more to what I was trying to get at earlier, a different way of framing this would be, you get to determine what your victory conditions are. So we don't all have, this is something that I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it can be quite a positive thing and quite a empowering thing. Your victory conditions in the info war, in the awakening, in the truth movement, do not have to be what mine are, and don't have to be what John's are, and don't have to be what Alpha's are, and they don't have to be what Trump's are. Like, we're all sovereigns, and we're generally aligned, which is why there's power in coming together as a sovereign collective. But obviously, we disagree on methodology, we disagree on end state, You talk to John Drake for any length of time, and he might disagree with core aspects of the founding, right? It's like we've all got different victory conditions, so maybe it's worth people every once in a while meditating a bit on what your personal victory conditions actually are.
Yep. And if you're okay with other people deciding what those are for you and when you get them, because that's a big part of it. At least a big part of the debate that we seem to have here. I got to get back to the rants. Where am I? Okay, there we go. We already did that. Adam Chester, my nut, says, here's the other $15 to cover Alpha's rant for $1. And then he says, oops, and sends another $14. Thank you so much, Adam. That's funny. We did that one. We did that one. Did that one. I think we did all these, didn't we? Pretty sure we did. Keith Higgins, Alpha's rant sounds personal and a choice between untrue instant gratification and choosing delayed truth pleasure. Either way, it sounds like an Alpha question he asked his boyfriend mid-blowjob. Keith. Principal Enigma says, not everyone actually signs up to fight at all costs. Alpha, I don't know any U.S. military branch that would endorse the mindset of treason. Thank you, Principal Enigma. The Alpha Show says, friction, soft disclosure, promo code FRESH. I'm not crying, you're crying. And Alpha Warrior says, I will not leave Badlands. I will have to save these retards or they will have to save me. Berkey says, what did I miss? Just tuned in. You missed a darn good show, in my personal biased opinion. The Alpha Warrior Show again says, are rants reimbursable, Mrs. BB? They are not. And then the Final Demand gifted 10 subscriptions. Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Flying Storm, I will lose my mind if 2028 the left loses their TDS. Yes. Flying Storm again says it's not a conspiracy. They used COVID and 80 million ballots to steal election and 6-foot distancing to keep people separated from ballots. That's the truth.
No, I'm saying it was a conspiracy in that they conspired to do what you said. That's what I meant.
The legal definition of the conspiracy. Yeah. Not a baseless conspiracy. And then Final Man for $20 says, if the golden age Trump talks about includes being lied to about everything, it's classified for your own good. I don't want any part of that. Been lied to for 50 years, and I'm tired of it. Just wait a little bit.
I mean,
longer.
right? Like, it's a very simple but good way to put this whole sort of thing. If you rewind, you, the general you, rewind to however you got into what you call the truth community, right? Like, why you thought Trump was different, why you followed the Q drops, the truth movement, the Great Awakening. It's different than just being a Republican, isn't it? It's kind of a different thing. If the version of you in 2026 thinks that sort of perma slow rolling everything, or maybe just other people getting to determine what we do find out and what we don't find out, even if that's the reality, if you're okay with that is the question. And maybe try to imagine talking to the version of you from 2017 and arguing with that version of yourself and seeing if you would win that argument.
Yeah. That's a good way to frame it, man. But with that, we're done. We're out of rants. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Do me a favor and hit the thumbs up, both here and on YouTube. Whatever your thoughts on YouTube, you're not doing it for YouTube's sake. You are doing it for our sake. And that's what is most important. You are helping us out. You truly are. I'm going to post that in the chat here on Rumble. And then, BB, when are you on next? What's the movie?
The movie is pretty great for our purposes. I had never seen it before. We're doing Syriana tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, myself and Chris Paul. If you guys have not checked out Story Hour, Chris and I just use the framework and the template of the movie to basically have info war, shadow war, Great Awakening conversation, usually related to its themes. This one, however, some of them are much more broad themes. This one, I was hoping it would be relevant to everything we've seen go on geopolitically in 2026. And man, it's crazy. It's basically, it's 2005, but it's congruent parallel storylines between a CIA operative operating in the Middle East. You've got a energy consultant with a big oil company. And then you've got a lawyer working within a different oil company. All of them kind of navigating the Gulf states royal families, wet works, all the rest of it. And by the way, I found out, I'll give you a little spoiler from the intro to tomorrow night's show. I found out that the word Syriana actually comes from, in this period of time, in the 90s and early 2000s, this was an intel community think tank term used to describe their hopeful end state of the Middle East, which was to have private corporations running each country. That was U.S. think tank proposed policy. And we can argue about whether or not that happened in the next 20 years. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll be back on tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for the Daily Herold. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a good outro video. Anybody know of any good videos?
I sent you one that's related to Fang Fang.
Where's that?
On Telegram.
Oh, man.
I had the outro video before the show even started. I knew the one.
Okay, well, for this one, we're going to have to say goodbye to YouTube because it looks like we will definitely get dinged for it. So
somebody's getting dinged.
This has to do with the Fang Fang thing. YouTube will catch you later.